Welcome to Creators Edge Studio. I'm Tom Arcoop.
And I'm John Colton.
We have a special episode, The Lightning in the Bottle Recipe, Secrets of Back to the Future and Ghostbusters, How to Make a Hit Movie. John, we're going to be talking about 3 secrets, which we put under the word HIT, H-I-T. Hear them out, integrate, and take the punch and top it. These are the secrets. We're going to talk about Back to the Future and Ghostbusters and really zero in on these 3 elements. Get us started there, John.
We're talking about what I would consider 2 of my top 10, if not top 5 favorite movies, and Back to the Future, which I consider the greatest screenplay ever written, which is every time I watch it, I learn something about writing.
Yes.
And just the way that all of the characters are tied together.
Yes.
All of the callbacks, all of the character arcs, and all of the way that everything just works so well together, just this perfect puzzle. There's no line of dialogue in that movie that is wasted.
Yes,
and all of it is important, and you can pay attention to every single detail, and even silly little things like
the clock tower, for example.
Right. Or the car that drives by at the beginning that he admires.
Yes.
Or the cake that she has for the uncle who didn't get out of jail. Or
you better get used to being in there.
Or the way that she's telling her kids how to act and date. Everything plays into something later,
right,
and is added upon.
Yes.
And it just comes back in such a big way.
Right.
Like Marty getting rejected to being able to play at the high school prom.
Yes, absolutely. It all pays off. It's all elegant writing. Everything gives you a foreshadowing, and then it pays off. Excellent. Now we talk about hear them out, because it's really collaboration that makes both Back to the Future and Ghostbusters extraordinary. So take us into that collaboration detail.
One of the things really works in movies, it's having the writer and director write the script together, which is what happened in Back to the Future, and to a large extent in Ghostbusters.
Yes.
I mean, Bob Gale,
the screenwriter of Back to the Future, with the director.
Right.
Bob Zemeckis. The 2 Bobs are called.
Yeah. So Bob and Bob.
Yes.
They famously worked on this together and did it on 3x5 cards, wrote the thing out, and could not sell it to anybody.
Right.
Because nobody got it. Because it was just different enough that it was a little bit misunderstood.
Well, Disney didn't want it, what are you doing? You say that the guy's mother as a young person is going to hit on her own son? That's intense.
Right. Then I also heard there were other producers that were like, yeah, we can make it, but for only 10% of the budget you want. And we need to add more nudity, make it more in the direction of Porky's.
Right.
And they were like, no, you don't get it.
Yes.
So
one person who got it was Steven Spielberg. He got it. There's a collaboration right there. Without Steven Spielberg, Back to the Future would not have ended up at Universal Studios.
Yeah, it's all about finding the right people to be on your team.
Right, and the people who will back you up. In fact, another collaboration thing here was that Bob Zemeckis saw that Eric Stoltz, the guy originally cast as Marty McFly, was not working. They spent $4 million. They decided to throw away $4 million when Steven Spielberg backed up Bob Zemeckis when he said, I'm not getting the Marty McFly I was writing.
Yeah, that's a good point too. I think we see that also in Ghostbusters, that same type of collaborative magic.
Right.
Because the first draft of the script was written by Dan Aykroyd, and it was largely a horror movie.
Right.
And also a little bit existential and a little bit science fiction.
Intergalactic Ghostbuster groups. Yes.
And Dan Aykroyd has a brilliant, brilliant mind. I have heard him tell every conceivable ghost story, Bigfoot story, alien story, and he has names, dates. So we can imagine what that script might have looked like. When they brought in Ivan Reitman, he was like, make this movie smaller. We'll make it about them going into business.
Yes.
And Harold Ramis got involved also. And, Harold Ramis, again, kind of another legend of storytelling in film.
Right.
I think just being able to work together, it all works. Movies like this are so hard to make because I think normally at some point egos get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
I think having these talented writers, this great director, they're all collaborating. Then you add Bill Murray,
Mm-hmm.
who comes in and is ad-libbing lines
Oh, yes. He
on
ad-libbed. He slimed me.
On this, screenplay that they've
Right.
slaved over.
Right.
And they go with it because it's good,
Yes.
right? And it's working. And these are great lines that he's throwing in.
And that ties into what we're talking about. Hear them out. So everybody's hearing each other out. And Bill Murray is ad-libbing, and they integrate his ad-libs into the movie. And you have a detail to talk about Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis is fantastic. He did a very interesting thing. There's the scene in Tully's apartment, the Rick Moranis character.
Right.
He had actually studied accounting
Mm-hmm.
in real life, Rick Moranis. And he's talking about the characters in the film and talking about their accounting needs.
Right.
And everything. This was all not in the script. And so he kind of gave himself a big monologue scene in the movie,
Yes.
which I think for a director with a bigger ego and a screenwriter with a bigger ego,
Mm-hmm.
they might have said, what the heck do you think you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
You don't just go on this huge monologue in the middle of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But when it works, it works.
Yes. So that leads right into take the punch and top it. And what I mean by that is I'm saying that this one take, it was improvised, as you mentioned, with Rick Moranis, and it was one shot. It was a reaction to a problem. The punch or the hit was that they were up against a terrible deadline, two ways. One is that they had to film the movie in New York before the bad weather in New York showed up. Number two, they had to make the deadline of when the movie would be released. So a lot of times they were filming just a few takes. And one way to film just a few takes is to have one long take, have the camera follow the character, which they did with Rick Moranis, and then you just get it. You just grab it all one take, and then you just move on to the next part of filming. I know this as a film director myself. I've done that, but you can only do that if you're collaborating with really good actors like Rick Moranis, where they can flow, and also all the actors have to stay in character and flow and respond to whatever's showing up in the improvisation. That's taking a tough situation in Ghostbusters and then topping it. That is making it more. And the same thing happened with Back to the Future, and it's related to the $7 million budget cut.
In the original script, they had this big ending with a huge nuclear explosion.
Right.
That was going to be the thing that could power the time machine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was supposed to be, back in the 50s, they were doing a lot of nuclear testing, and that was the idea for the ending.
Yes.
And it just wasn't in the budget. They couldn't afford another huge effects scene like that.
Right.
And,
or going to another location too. So they kept it all. They kept it all in the studio lot with the clock tower.
And that helped keep everything local, keep a straighter through line, and tie everything together more. But I read the original script to Back to the Future. In the original script, they had Marty McFly in his high school class asleep, and the class was watching footage of nuclear blast tests. And so that's the opening image of the film, and that would have been the closing image of the film. So you see they really had a very strong fix on what they wanted to have in their script and how to write a tight script.
Yes.
And had that even been in, that would have been another callback and a more foreshadowing that would have happened.
Yes, exactly. So what I'm hearing here is that when they lost the ending that they wanted, which was the nuclear blast that powers Marty to get back home to 1985, when they lost that, then they changed the opening. But it's interesting that they put in a visual that still points us to the ending.
Boom, it ties together at the end, and just fantastic storytelling.
And what's amazing is that you don't even know all these things that pay off at the end until you've seen the film more than once.
And that, I think, is one of the key things that makes these movies so great, is the rewatchability factor. Everything in the story, all the acting, all the dialogue, it's all just so great. It's a ride you want to go on again and again.
Yes, absolutely. So, seems that we're coming to a close. We have talked about the three things that come into capturing the lightning in the bottle. We call it the lightning in the bottle recipe. It's assembled under the word HIT, HIT, hear them out, which tied into collaboration, integrate, and all our stories that we talked about, these two films, were all about integration of different points of view, different ideas, and then finally, you take the punch and you top it. Whether it's not having the budget to do the ending you want or being pushed into a tight schedule where you don't have as many takes as you want, and then you do that Rick Moranis one shot improvised scene that really works and gets more humor and introduces the characters so clearly. It's just amazing what can be done when people use the lightning in the bottle recipe. So just before we go, is there something you'd like to add?
Wait a minute, Tom. Are you telling me you built a lightning in a bottle machine?
Oh my gosh. In a DeLorean? Okay. Wow. Now we'd like to know your take on Back to the Future and Ghostbusters. Which one is your favorite movie? What do you like about these films? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you. And thank you, John.
Thank you, Tom.